My name is Dino Coliano. I'm actually working as strategic relationship manager for the climate control group, but it's climate craft air handlers is what we have. Climate master heat pumps, IEC fan coils. But my role is also a part of the ASHRAE 170 as a non-voting member. Anybody can do that, and we welcome that. I was one of those that was speaking about space ventilation plans. When I was with Siemens, I retired from Siemens a couple years ago. Said I got to do a couple more things in the next chapter of my career. Working now as a BDM, but I got on the 170 committee. I just put an application in through ASHRAE, and I'm a non-voting member, but I sit at all the ASHRAE 170 meetings. When I got on the 170, they said, wait a minute, all your operational and maintenance experience, you need to be on the Guideline 43. I've been speaking for 7, if not 8 years about how you use 170 to do ventilation management plans, put your O&M together. Not even knowing that 43 was coming out until this man tipped me off as well and said, sit on the 43. So for the last 18 months, I've been sitting on the 43 task force, part of the 170 committee, and helping write this plan. This guideline. I knew I was going to say that. So I'm Dino, sorry.
And I'm Jonathan Flannery, Senior Associate Director of Regulatory Affairs with the American Society for Healthcare Engineering of the American Hospital Association. Oh, man. You know, hey, my mom always taught me, when you try to get to where you want to get, you want two things. Get two things. Shorter commute means more time at home. I worked from my home and half for 12 years. I was remote before remote was cool, okay? Number 2, you want a longer title. I'm here, I ain't leaving this because I can't get it much longer than that.
You got the first one, you shouldn't have a second.
That's right. Yeah. So, but I've been with ASHE now about 13 years. Prior to that, I worked at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. Go Hogs! Sorry, I had to do that. I know. And prior to that, I was in the federal government with the Indian Health Service and the VA for 20 plus years. So, folks, I started out just like George. I started out as an architectural technician. You know what that is?
Carpenter.
No, it's not carpenter. It's the fancy name for a draftsman.
Yeah.
I actually started out doing ink on Mylar, to scale. Anyone even know what that means anymore? Anyway, but worked my way up. I've worked as an administrative officer for a facility. You know, spent years chasing the tie to the C-suite. You know, and then decided I wanted to get back to making a difference, and that's why I came to ASHE. And I'm very passionate about trying to make a difference, all right? Did you notice that the very last item George barely touched on was what? Thought I heard it. No. Penetration. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
He barely even touched on penetrations,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
I spent 22 years of my career chasing penetrations as the #1 finding for Joint Commission. Not the #1 environmental care fund, the #1 finding. And that was just blew me away. So I took the opportunity working with George to get their data and evaluate the root cause of why penetrations are and continue to be a problem. Okay? 80% of all penetrations, we found out, when we went through and read the actual citations, are due to conduit. So we know that our biggest problem with penetration is whom? Have you ever seen an IT you got to use a conduit? Get out of here, folks. We have said that for decades. I've watched presentations where they'll throw Bill Gates up there and say, here's the problem. IT guys don't use conduit.
Some do, and they take the putty out and leave it on the top.
Very few.
They can't get on ladders either, so it can't be
How do they do their penetrations? They take their hole punch or their wire punch, boom, boom, and they put their cable through, right? Now, 12% of penetrations are cables. That's IT. Folks, who uses the conduit? Electricians. Now, there's two kind of electricians that come around in a hospital. Who are they? Contractors? No, contractors. Contractors. How many of you are here? Come on. Contractors, right? Well, who's responsible for the contractors?
Facilities.
Who? Facilities. So you're not managing your contract right. Or it's your own dang employees. And when I realized this, I went back and I started working with the folks I knew and everything. And guess what? It was our own people. Once we realized that, we spent 5 years going around teaching barrier management symposiums and teaching this and helping people understand where the issue is. What happened to that citation? It dropped down, dropped down. And for 2 years, 3 years, it was off the list. Okay? So that's my passion, is trying to solve those type of issues. What is our #1 finding in the environment of care right now?
Wires don't swing.
No?
I got it.
It's up there. It's up there, but we've got that one solved once we get the dang
Yeah, the code.
latest edition done.
Actually,
What is it?
ventilation.
Ventilation? Pressure relationships, humidity, and temperatures.
That's how I got into it. So my days at Siemens, when I first got into at Siemens, as the head of healthcare, we were putting some service programs together, and there was so much focus on O2, O3, O5, on all the EPs. So we had a defined program for that, but we didn't have anything for the more automation side, critical spaces. So that's really what got me into it, is knowing that our customer base, service base, but our customers were struggling with that EP15 around the inability to control contaminants in critical spaces. And so we built a service program around that, but that's really what got my interest, and that's what really started me figuring out how to use this, right? I went to 12.
Everybody know what this is, right?
Yeah, 170. I went to 12 different ASHE chapters and kind of helped people start to put together a program to try and address that. Well before 43, I sat at an ASHE annual presentation, 2017. Dennis Ford, who was a customer at Texas Children's, had put together this program, and I was sitting there as a good friend and customer of his, supporting him, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the concept. Putting this program together, that we have an organized program that goes around to our critical spaces at the time and does some O&M, and it's documented, and that we can show people that we've been in a space, we've done A, B, C, and D, and that will help. And it's aligned to, at the time, references just 170, because that's all we had. Now, what came into that is then, well, what about AMI? What about AORN and all this other stuff? We'll talk about that in a minute and how you address that, but that's all fair. But that then gets into what we call a negotiation with all these different stakeholders that allows us to come to a common platform and understanding of how we're going to manage spaces. So that's my background in it, was really taking it from how to use 170, and I got a lot of feedback, because everybody up until now is doing it differently. I've been out in hundreds of hospitals, and there's no two alike. I've been at health systems where at the health system level, it looks great, it's nice, thick, it looks perfect, everybody's got buy-in. Then you go out to the facilities and you start walking around, and it's all different.
All right, let's talk real quick about 170. All right? How does this get applicable to you? Does anyone know?
Well, originally it was for basically a design guideline to help.
Not
design.
basically. Terry, not basically.
Well, that's what I call it, basically.
It is.
You're being nice.
It is.
I'm being nice.
You're nice.
You're too nice, Terry.
Southern
Come on,
charm.
man. Let's
You're being nice.
put it on the table, boys.
It is a design guideline, but the trouble is,
There you go.
but the problem about it comes to being is that all your regulatory agencies are saying that's how you're supposed to operate stuff.
Exactly.
That's
it.
our problem.
That's it.
Yes.
My man, we got it. That's our problem. We're taking the design standard. Let's make sure we keep this real clear. Standard. Is there a difference between a standard, hold that one up, and a guideline? What's the difference?
What's required?
Yes. One you gotta do, one joint commission says you gotta do.
Yes and no. This is written with shall and must.
You have to do it.
That is written with should and recommend. Okay? That's the difference between a standard and a guideline, all right? Standards are typically adopted. How does this get adopted? 170, how does it get adopted? NFPA 99 in Chapter 9 references this document for new construction and renovation. Why, Terry? Because it's a design standard, okay? And it is. It says right in the very first scope or the purpose. It is a design standard, not operations, okay?
John, so I think where it changed some is when it was published with the guidelines.
Nope.
Before it was separate. No, I'm saying in the mind, not
Well-
in practice.
Again, the facilities FGI
Right.
produce or includes this in the back of every single book they publish, okay?
That's right.
And a different edition in each one, and that's where it gets really complicated with this deal, because again, 99 is a 2008 edition, all right? Georgia, I believe, has adopted the 2014 edition of FGI, if I remember right.
No, they're the
18?
Yeah.
You're 22 now?
Yeah.
All right, well, 22 has the 2001 edition of 170 in it. So your state requires you to design to the 2021 edition of 170.
Right.
Wait a minute, CMS requires you to do 2008. Is there any difference between the two? Yeah, look up bronchoscopy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're in trouble.
there's a 2008 version.
Yeah.
It's about 30 pages less. I mean,
Less than this,
there's
yeah.
really not a lot in here. But that's
So-
the Joint Commission.
But again, this is where I tend to confuse folks. This is 170. This is how you design something. Why do we have ranges in the design standard? Any mechanical engineers? Come on, raise them high, get them up there, get them up there. My mechanical engineers. Why do you use a range when you're designing a mechanical system?
Safety?
No, not safety.
Even more simple, simpler.
It's flexibility for them to operate the system.
Okay. If I don't give you a range, and I want you to be able to put the temperature for this room, I want to be able to go from 0 to 180. How big of a unit you gonna make?
17.2 tons.
Okay. If I want it from 68 to 72, how big of a unit you gonna make?
25.3 tons.
This guy's good. So that's what those ranges, that's what these ranges are all about, is to size the piece of equipment.
Right.
So you know how big of a unit to give me, okay? I give you the size of the room, I tell you what equipment's gonna be in there, and then the ranges help you decide what piece of equipment to give me, okay? Or maybe even what type of system to give me, etc. That's what these ranges are all about. It has nothing to do with operating the actual room. Let's talk about the Maricopa County Medical Center. They operate 3 of their ORs at 86 degrees minimum. Why? Who in their right mind wants to do that? Because they are the number one burn unit in the United States of America. With a person who has a 20% degree or 20% burn across their body, if you operate on them at 72 degrees, you're going to kill them. Yeah, exactly. They go into hypothermia and die. All right? So if they follow this standard, they kill people. We don't want to do that, do we? Mark, do we want to? No. So again, operations is very different than the design, all right? So let's start talking about Guideline 43. The whole purpose of this guideline is to address the fact that what I did in 2000 was wrong. In the year 2000, I was sitting at the table with our Joint Commission inspector, and he asked me that wonderful question. So, Jonathan, how do you manage your HVAC systems? And my response was?
Thermostat.
No.
Fair.
These guys are a tough crowd. No. I answered, Oh, we follow guideline 170, or standard 170, of course. What did I just do? I just took a design standard and made it operational.
Wrong answer.
Exactly, wrong answer. Well, what's the problem though? I don't have a document that I can say, this is how I'm going to operate it. You know, when they walked into my OR, they asked my charge nurse in the OR, so how do you manage your systems here? What'd she answer? Amy, the Amy standard. And they just start smiling. Why? Got you, boys. Yeah, because you're using two different things. All right? So having done that, having learned from that experience, when I got on 170, one of my key things was to, and I've been on 170 for almost 15 years now, I've been fighting this fight for 15 years, was to establish an operational section within 170. That was my goal, okay? Well, as we got into this, we realized, actually, we need something totally different. And why did we decide a guideline? Do you know why did we go with a guideline?
A guideline is a recommendation. It gives you the flexibility to create your own plan. It's not a standard, it's a guideline. Even this guideline, as you see this guideline, there may be things like we got a lot of feedback, a lot of very
Good feedback.
good feedback, that things that we put, not everything in here is black and white. Like we're trying to put some flexibility in this document and put some things to get some comment. We got a lot of feedback. Well, why is this? Why is that? The good news is we got the feedback, right? So we don't, but the point is, this is just a template. This maybe gets you, if you don't have a plan, it can help you put the plan together. If you have a plan, it may just give you different things to think about to enhance your plan. So it's very flexible. I think the biggest thing, my takeaway, we tell people, you now have the ability to put a plan together that has flexibility in it versus, back to the example, I was in enough hospitals where the first thing when I looked at their documentation was I referenced 170. And that's where we get back to this tightness that you then, because you reference that, now you got to operate that way, right? Based on your policy and procedures. What we always say is put your policies and procedures together with a lot of different, with different documents that you can then work from in your plan.
So, all right, so the purpose of this document, Guideline 43, is to provide recommendations. That's the main thing. It does cover all healthcare facilities. All right, so can I use Guideline 43 on an MOB? Yeah. Medical office building, is that a healthcare facility? Absolutely is. You can use it all day, okay? And instead of saying I'm going to follow 170, I can say we use 43 and we have established our own ventilation management program. Let's talk about the program. This came from the genesis is what? Water management. Okay? If you, the University of Arkansas for Medical Center, University of Arkansas Medical Services, their facility, where do they get their water from? Does anyone take a guess? It's called the Arkansas River. Is that water different than where you're getting your water from?
No statement.
Why, Robert? It's water.
We get ours from a well
From a well. Very different water.
in South Georgia.
Yeah, well, that's not just What about someone who's pulling water off of a lake?
Different.
Extremely different. River is running water, has more organic, but far less pathogen that lives in it. A lake has, yeah, good luck, buddy. During spring and summer, good luck. But that's why a water management program is established, so that you know where your water is coming from, how well your city's treating it, making sure that it's done properly, et cetera, and then you put in monitoring stuff, ways to monitor it with temperature, with pH balance, et cetera, to make sure it's good to be able to do what? Take care of your patients. We've fashioned this the exact same way. The way you run the ventilation systems in Miami is going to be different than in Michigan. Okay? And you should have the flexibility to do that, right? The way you run the ventilation system for your surgery area is going to be different than for your administrative areas. All right? We already know that, right? How many of you have critical equipment in your administrative areas? I sure hope not. Right? But yet the air handler that serves your OR isn't one of your critical pieces of equipment. You do 100% PM on that thing? You better, right? So that's why we've done this. Next slide, please. There's the outline. You guys can read that someday when you want to. Next one.
Well, real quick,
Okay.
who's read this? Let me just ask that. I should have asked this up front. There's one, right? Who's actually read this?
We got one. Yeah.
Okay, we do have one. That's good. Usually we
Very
have one.
surprised, man.
And yeah. So this has been in public review since October. Yeah, year and a half for comment. We got a lot of comments.
We got a lot
I
of.
was reading the
Yeah,
comments. and-
yeah, we got a lot of comments. So if you're a member of, probably, I'm ASHRAE and ASHE. Many of you are ASHRAE and ASHE members. It was noted in ASHE, but it sits up on the ASHRAE site. So if you're not the dual, then you may have missed that. If you didn't, you may have seen it in the ASHE notices.
Well, yeah. Again, ASHE is sent out in our e-newsletter.
That's it. Yep.
Every time this has gone out for public review, we've done a big public announcement on it, make sure it's all linked together. Yep, with the links right to it and et cetera. Right.
So part of this too is, I mean, we literally this started as an education session, but now it's more about the awareness, right?
Yeah.
Just being aware of what's going to happen with 43. And again, there'll probably be another session once it gets published on the education side of it. So right now it's more about awareness, that you want to know what's in it, you want to read it, then you can start thinking through how does that affect me, or what would I do differently now that it's out there as a guideline.
So we're going to jump through, or we're going to go through the recommendations within that guideline on how to do this, okay? All right, next one. So here's the steps. We recommend these 9 steps, and we'll go into each one. First and foremost is forming a committee, all right? This committee needs, how many of you wrote your utility management plan in your office back in 2000, in your office all by yourself, and you had to have utility incidents reporting process. And it described how I sat in my office and wrote the utility incident process for when there was a failure in the OR. Never talked to a single person in the OR. I decided what they were going to do, when they were going to do it, and just published it as policy. Never even shared it with Acton. We're good. We don't want to be doing that, folks. All right? It needs to be a multidisciplinary team. Your HVAC staff need to be on this committee. They need to be talking to the clinical staff. They need to be talking to the infection prevention staff and all of that, because we all have an air conditioner at home and in the car, right? Anybody know how it actually works? The HVAC staff do, right? They need to know. That's why they need to be at the table when doing this, all right?
Point of clarification. So this committee, you have your EOC committee. What we recommend as you start this is that, is it on there? Oh yeah, there we go, okay. I knew the slide was coming.
You're good, go for it.
Yeah, so part of that discussion is, everybody has the EOC committee. What we always think of as a subcommittee, right? A separate, a little task force that works on your ventilation management committee. So that may be something, you get that group together, it's a subgroup of that, you put the group together, multidisciplinary task force to put together your ventilation management plan, get everybody's input. That may continue, or that may just go away over time once the program's up and running and established. It's different across facilities. We've had people who have them up and running are keeping them for a while, right? Till everybody understands what it's happening.
One thing we have seen, because there are several organizations that have also gone through this process, is when you start, this takes time.
Yeah.
This takes a lot of investment up front, and you meet, most of them have started meeting weekly.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's why we
And that's a
recommend you
huge commitment.
separate it from
Yeah.
your EOC.
Yeah.
To get that focus. Yeah.
So Most of them have also gone to quarterly meetings after, once it's established, once it's in place, once the training done, then they go to quarterly meetings because you still want to report all this up through EOC to safety, to quality, to leadership, okay? If you don't keep that connection, it can get lost at some point, so be aware of that.
Jonathan, on
Yes.
some that we've done previous to y'all's standard when we just did it, it actually got to risk management as well.
Yep.
Because they looked at a lot of the, I guess,
Good
out.
feedback.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big one. That slowed it
Yeah.
way down.
Yeah. And risk management slow you down? Wow. Yeah. But they're an important part of it. So, all right. Once you get the committee together, you got to develop what we call a source of truth. All right? This is where you actually sit down and determine what is the truth behind how it was built and what it was at that point. Okay? I've worked at buildings that were built in the early 50s, part of the Hill-Burton process, and had never been renovated from that point forward when it came to the HVAC systems. Okay? The way that was designed and put in place is very different than what we do today. So you need that source of truth on every part of that system, all right? And it's gonna vary. And it takes that, again, who's gonna know all this stuff? Who?
The HVAC.
The HVAC team, yeah, they know it, okay? And if you've got that gentleman who's at my age and looking ready to retire, you better get him at the committee now, because before he walks out the door, you want to document all this, okay? So this is important because it establishes all those code references and all the design stuff and all that. What is this? What do we call this in our industry? This is our benchmark. This is establishing the baseline, okay? If I don't have the baseline, what am I going to have to go to? The most applicable standard in place, and that's the 2021 edition. But if it's built in 1950, you don't want to do that. So this is real important. You want to establish this source of truth, okay?
I was going to say, real quick here, about the inventory. I mean, it's very common, 02, 03, 05, all your devices on the life safety fire side, you have inventories. As I started working more on the automation side and the equipment side, I saw a lot of gaps there, right? So it's, in theory, we started out with spaces, an inventory of spaces and or equipment within that space. Now that we're moving to 43, you really need to make sure you have that inventory of your equipment. I mean, many do, some don't. But it gets back to that same concept of the inventory and making sure whether it's a space inventory, which you can pull out of your space programs. If you have that, usually it moves into the spreadsheet. Everywhere when I'd go to the hospitals and we'd start talking about it, everybody start pulling out their spreadsheets, right? They'd have their spreadsheets of spaces with all the names, what the actual name was, what they call it, and then they start the room numbers and you start working across with your equipment and things like that. And then towards the end was your PM schedules. And that's how most people do it. And that's okay. That's your program right now. So you don't want to start fresh. You want to pull that in. Yeah, you pull that into this.
And one of the other things we have found is, you have your space inventory and
Archibus or whatever this program.
yeah, Archibus, and
yeah.
one department manages that. You have your CMMS, which has the equipment inventory. You have another group doing another. Pull them all together, folks. You only need one list. Why do we only want one list?
Continuity.
Yeah. Absolutely. When you've got different folks working off a different list, it becomes a nightmare.
Try that.
Yeah.
Try getting nurses to come around to your way of thinking.
Okay, if you can't, I totally understand that, Robert. Been there, done that. Wore that shirt out, buddy. Okay. How do you fix that problem? Come around to their thinking.
You come around to their thinking or show them your way's better.
Or make them think they thought of it.
Here's where I'm going, Terry. Come around to their thinking, and then slowly persuade them to yours. Okay. But yeah. I mean, working with people. That's. Let's be honest, folks. 90% of the problem is what? Working with people.
It's changing.
Because it's
Human
people.
beings.
Human beings, yeah.
We
We
got-
are what do it.
We got 4 different ways of reporting a incident at the hospital. 4 different ways of me finding out that I got a ceiling tile buried. 4 or 5 different ways, besides a phone call.
All right, so how many of you have ever completed an infection control risk assessment? Yeah? Oh, yeah. Whole nother story here. Oh, here we go again. You know, what's one of the first thing we do with the NICR is what? Determine what? The activity. What are we doing? What's the second thing we determine?
Where it's at.
Where it's at. Why is that important?
That's going to determine how you, what risk you actually got in there and all, because of the criticality of the patient.
There we go.
The first thing you want to do when you're putting your ventilation management program together is pull out those documents for your ICRA and determine where are my high-risk patients, where are my medium risk, where are my highest risk patients, where are my low-risk patients. And get that on a plan. All right? Because once you've got that on a plan, it becomes very easy. Now I know. Do you know where your air handler serves?
Absolutely.
I sure hope so, right? Yeah. So now that I know where my patients are and what their risk category is, it's easy to determine which one's higher or which one isn't. You know? So again, why do we want to drive this back to the patient services and the patient? Hello, that's why we're here, okay? Yeah, that's what it's all about, people, is taking care of the patient, all right? You need to indicate, once you have that done, you need to look at the impact of the service, the HVAC, the ventilation services to those areas, okay? Let me ask this. Has anyone ever died because the air conditioning system failed? When?
No.
Oh. We got a yes over here with Terry and a no over here with Brian. What's up?
Not
in my facility.
There might be some consequences days and
You said
days
air
later.
conditioning, you didn't say HVAC.
HVAC, the ventilation system.
Oh, okay.
We have had an incident within our country not too long ago in Florida.
Yes, I was going to do.
Yeah.
Was that
Okay.
one because the unit's going to be down and people in there getting overheated?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Why'd those people die?
You're old.
Because they were old.
I resemble that little man.
Mainly they died because of leadership competency, but
Okay,
there was some-
this is what everybody heard in the news.
Yeah, the
The
criminality.
HVAC systems weren't on emergency power, the people died.
Yeah.
You realize there was a hospital right across the street that had power?
that offered.
Within hours.
That offered.
To take those patients. And the management of that facility decided not to. Why?
Ego.
No, had nothing to do with ego.
Money.
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 Follow the money. Follow the money.
They're in jail today because of
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now look at the money.
And they are.
By the name of
Yeah, they got 15 years for involuntary manslaughter. Yes, they did. And in my opinion, they should have gotten life. Because that was unconscionable. To keep those people in that situation, let's be honest. If the ventilation system fails, even in the OR during an active surgery session, does anyone die? No. They don't die. I mean, are they at some risk? Yes.
Yeah.
The chances of them getting an SSI has gone up. But do we treat SSIs? Every day. We do. We recover from those every single day.
How long before the code's gonna say air conditioning is required in South Georgia, just like heat's required in Michigan?
Hence, Robert, why you need a VMP to establish that you don't. Now, do you need? Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right. So again, and let me tell you, there were 27 individuals that helped write this guideline. Okay? And we spent almost a year arguing over whether there's a Category 1 HVAC system or not. Are there Category 1 electrical systems? Absolutely. When electricity goes away, anybody on a vent is at the risk of dying right then and there. End of story. All right? I'm of the opinion now, and I was one of the guys that fought, wait, there's gotta be, your OR is a category 1. The spaces, category 1. But I don't believe anymore that the HVAC system is category 1.
Did you say that to us in writing?
No, why won't I? Because you're gonna develop your own GMP and do a risk assessment that shows they're not.
Culpability.
I mean, we won the fight years ago, but we've had a very, very understanding board.
Yeah.
It's all in how you, it's all in, just what you said a while ago. Make them think it's their idea and don't give them a way out.
Oh, yeah. Well, and again, can we make category 1 HVAC systems?
Yes.
Yeah. Just requires redundancy. Put 2 air handlers up on the roof and feed one and then do the other one next month and the next month and just switch back. Yeah, we can do that. You'd love that, wouldn't you?
Do it, yeah. I was gonna tell you though, you talk about category 1, some of the transplant arenas, and then we've also got some organ recovery centers. We did all that because you can't back up.
Well,
You've got to finish. So,
Right.
so we did put the backup. We did with fan wall. We did some other things, but still, we had to do that because again, it's the use.
and it's not so much the use as it is the operations. And the fact that if they don't finish up,
They can't.
it becomes a real issue. Will those folks die? Maybe, maybe not. You know, category 2, totally agree. But again, it's just right. The last time I built the building, we put 100% emergency power in that dang thing. Every outlet, every light, and why? Because if on average, I'd lose power 7 times a year. That means 7 days of the year I have how many people coming to my facility? 0. And most of those were 3 to 4 day long periods. So I just lost a whole month of revenue. You know how cheap it is to put an emergency generator of size to run a whole building? Not much. So that was a business case
That's right.
type thing that we decided to make it category 1. But a true category 1 means that if this system fails, someone is at the risk of dying. Okay? And again, electricity is, especially for ORs, ICUs, anywhere you're using vents. All right. Some people argue that electricity for dialysis centers are category 1.
They got a hand crank on them.
Yeah, you can hand crank them. Not only that, I'm good. I'll see you later. Yeah. So yeah. So again, we've got the NFPA categories up here as an example. We've also got within the guideline, we recommend 2 different types of spaces. Again, recommend. Smitty, can you make 12 different type of spaces? Absolutely, man. Be my guest. I like simple. I'm a simple boy, okay? Keep it simple, baby. We did 2. There's critically ventilated spaces, and then there's everything else. All right? So that's how we did it for that. Here's an example. Children's Hospital in Dallas.
Yeah, so Children's Hospital in Dallas, this is what, and again, this goes back, and I'll go back a couple of years. Here's an article from HFM, March of 2021. As I mentioned, I saw Dennis Ford put this presentation out in 2017 about pressure-dependent spaces, a program. I then saw the IU Health people in 2019 talk about managing ventilation requirements, and they started introducing that, hey, our critical areas, our critical spaces are good. We got in trouble with EP 16 in the non-critical areas that had ventilation requirements, temperature, humidity, filtration. So for me at that time, when we were talking to the chapters, we said, oh, by the way, you got to focus on the critical, but don't forget you have ventilation requirements in other areas. So as you build out your plan, don't forget about some of those spaces. That may have been a little too broad at the time, but at the time we were thinking critical and non-critical, I got to have a plan. That's really the concept that we brought. This article was basically for me, and Jonathan was tipping me off this, don't call it space ventilation.
Yeah.
You got to call it ventilation management. And literally this article comes out, and this literally, we pulled this in. This is from 2021. We literally pulled this document into Guideline 43 as an informative appendix. I will share with whoever a copy of it. I think HFM will let me.
Oh, yeah.
But the point is, this follows what you just saw about the steps. So the risk ranking piece of it, Children's Health of Dallas, they came up with using an FPA because it was written by their life safety person, compliance manager, but using those 4 categories, and they risk assessed the rooms, the equipment within the rooms, the environmental parameter. I mean, they went pretty deep.
Why do all that? Because you are required to, folks. CMS adopted what edition of 99? 2012. It says you'll do this.
Risk ranking.
You're supposed to be doing this already. Why don't we do it for ventilation? Because nobody's citing us for it. Okay? Well, do it. Yeah. And not only do it, but do it in a way that it functions within your operations. All right? All right. And we do need to move on. So, condition indicators. What the heck is this? Condition indicators? These are your measurement things. Okay? You're going to put in place, once you decide and rank all your spaces and what's critical, what's not, you know, if you want to use the 4 categories. By the way, can you come up with more categories than NFPA did? Yeah, absolutely. Create 6 of them, I don't care. What's your lucky number?
13.
13. There we go. 13? Hey, we get to talk, boy. So anyway, you'll develop these, and these need to be based off of. Well, no, don't need to be. We recommend these be based off of 2 things. Take a guess what they are.
The equipment you own?
No.
Broader.
We don't care about that stuff. I'm just kidding. Number 1, patient care.
Oh,
If there's a clinical need, you better follow that first. What space did I already mention that's out of whack with everything that's in any standard? If you're doing what? Burns. Okay. If you do burn victims, you better have a plan that allows your OR to get up to 86 degrees. All right? What other patient do we need to be really concerned about when we're doing operations on? NICUs. Neopremos.
Yeah.
Premium. Okay? They're typically in the 80-degree range when you're operating on them. Because they're so small, their body can't regulate temperature well, so again, clinical need is number 1. What should be number 2? Well, let me tell you a little story. Okay? My mom's getting up in age. All right? Bless her soul. Smartest woman I ever knew. All right? Still do. I still know her. Anyway. Had to put her in a memory care facility. All right? Tough decision. This is about 5 years ago. Being the person that I am, you know, I fought my brother and sister tooth and nail. We need to put her in this type of stuff. I went and I inspected a facility. They had fire sprinklers. They had all this stuff. I asked for their emergency management plan. They actually had one. I was impressed. You know, good facility. Okay. So we put her in this facility. 2 months later, what do? Unannounced visit. Why? Checking on them, man. You're darn right, man. They're taking care of my mama. You're darn right. So I go in, unannounced, and I walk into my mom's room, and it's got to be 80 degrees in that room. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, what are these people doing?
she had on the coat.
Don't they know that this document says it's got to be between 68 and 72?
Patient.
Resident room.
Resident. Table 8.
Yeah. 9.1.
9.1 residents. I'm just kidding. Outpatient. Well, those are new chapters. All right, that's a newer chapter. Hold on,
All
it's a newer
right,
chapter.
so, and she can't, and my mom, you know, my mom was always, you know, there were always 3 extra kids in my house, because my mom took care of every stray she ever found, okay? A kid, dog, cat, whatever. So anyway, she's got to introduce me to Catherine. Catherine, my best friend. And we go over to Catherine's room, and it's got to be 60 degrees in that room. I mean, especially after coming out of my mom's room, okay? And I get done my visit, and, I'm taking a little break from the visit. I walk over to the staff and I said, you know, you're way out of compliance here. This room is way too cold and that room is way too hot. What's going on? Well, that's where they like it. Number 2 purpose for your ventilation management program should be patient comfort. And I stood there and I realized, oh my gosh, they have got it absolutely right. My mom loves it 80 degrees, and you're right, she had a sweater on.
I'm doing it.
Oh, gosh. And Catherine, I would tell you to stay to Catherine because that's embarrassing, but anyway, and it's 60 degrees in here. And that, no, guys, come on. These are 87-year-old women, okay? So that should be one of your major considerations in developing your ventilation management program condition indicators, is your patient's comfort. We know, and there's tons of documentation, just Google patient comfort and healing. You'll get 5 million responses. Better yet, go on Google Scholar and Google it, and you'll have dozens and dozens of papers that show that when a patient is relaxed and comfortable, they heal quicker. Help them be. Why in the world do we still today go do your rounds and you walk down the hall and you'll see 4 patients with 3 blankets on? Why are we doing it? Because that's what the standard tells us we have to do. No, that's what we need to design to. We don't have to operate it there. But if I don't have a ventilation management program with specific condition indicators, what temperature range are we going to allow for patients? Are we going to allow patients to move from that indicator? Can I do that? If I say I'm going to do, let's say I decide I'm going to be between 68 and 72, all right, and that's what I want to stay at. Can I go outside of that later? Yeah. If it's based on patient comfort. Document that in your plan and be ready to adjust that. Now, here's the one challenge. If you worked at the Gallup Medical Center like I did, you can't do that because your system won't do it, because it's a 1950s system and it just won't do it. So be aware of that. You need to know what your system can do also, all right?
John,
August
we
South
did a study on a project, Don's project, and humidity was a big deal too, because what they found is they use all these things, which I'm not really, they're clinical things. They have these things called percussive, where they beat the chest to get the fluid out and all. But if the humidity isn't right, it can really impact how they're treating a patient with their respiratory issues. And so we looked at that real hard. We ended up putting humidifiers in just about all the air handlers, which was enough. We didn't have to have down to 5% control.
Right.
But that's something we never. I mean, we knew about humidity. We didn't realize how much that was
clinically,
a patient care.
how much it impacts.
Yeah.
So, and again, what concern should that be? Number 1.
Yeah.
Say,
Patient care. The clinical outcome of the patient should be number 1.
And it's not required, and it's not in FGI, but it was a
Yep.
requirement for their
That's
care.
good folks. All right. Any questions about your indicators? These need to be documented and put in your program. All right? They need to be spelled out. Why? And little beeps drive me crazy. My CDO kicks in. You know what CDO is, right? You don't know
OCD alphabetically
Thank
correct.
you, Rob. You got it. CDO is an alphabetized form of OCD, okay? My CDO kicks in. Beeping noises and flashing clocks. Anyway, so I take and I get over to the alarm panel for the isolation room, and it's got a layer of tape, medical tape on it about this thick. What the heck? And I pull it off and it's beeping. Why? Because it's an alarm.
Pressure.
Good job.
How long has this been? Oh, I think we called down 2 weeks ago. Okay. What patient do you have in there? Oh, it's Mary. She's got TB. We tested 700 and some odd people. Because I had to document everybody that walked in that hallway within that 2-week period.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Guess how many conversions we had? 2. We gave 2 people TB because the nursing staff decided they didn't want to listen to the alarm. Yeah, it's bad news. Right. All right.
That's a career
So-
enhancing opportunity right there.
Yeah. And it was actually a career enhancing opportunity for my operator who was on duty at that time, when it all came down. Because you know how he documented it? Nursing called again, I'm tired of this. Oh yeah, you're tired of it, you're done. Yeah, go tired somewhere else.
Go get some rest.
Yeah. So anyway, so we recommend, again, these are recommendations. Can you have a different list? Absolutely. Okay. Can you have different frequency? Absolutely. Okay. So that's that. The excursion. This is the other big one. We build right into the document excursions. What is an excursion? It's a really big Chevy, right? I was waiting to see where you're waiting.
Here's all the notes when you go on a cruise.
Nothing to do with that, man. All right. What is an excursion?
Outside the norm.
Variance.
It's an abnormal deviation, as George was calling it, okay? It's outside the norm, all right? Do we ever have excursions?
Yeah.
We do?
Everything outside.
No, wait. You have a ventilation management program, you'll never have an excursion.
got nurses.
You got legacy systems.
You have spring storms in Georgia. Causes excursions every year, doesn't it?
And winter storm.
Absolutely. All right. So prepare for them. All right. Set up a process how you're going to address them. This again, what we recommend here is if you're, let's go to the right. If you are over the threshold, I'm sorry, it's the one on the left. If you're over the humidity threshold, so what's my threshold?
60.
Would I ever change that personally? Never. 60 is pretty well documented, folks. That's where we want to be. We can talk all day about the lower end, but the higher end, you don't mess with that. 60 is where you want to be. So if I'm 63% for 6 hours, should I do something? Yeah.
But not 6 minutes.
There you go. Perfect.
Beautiful.
For a minute, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Or 30 seconds.
You
Yeah.
gotta establish.
Your humidity sensor. Yeah, right. Get out of here.
That's probably,
Read the manufacturer's information on that. You realize it's not even accurate down to 10%?
that's probably one of the bigger takeaways from this document. We spent way too much time on the frequencies, and that's why you'll see it's been vanilla. It's not as strong, but it's basically you decide spaces and frequencies for testing. This area, I think, is one of the biggest benefits, because as I went through plans and we look at plans, it doesn't show how you deal with that.
Right.
If you deal with it up front in your VMP, then you don't have to do that work order thing all the time, because it's established that when this condition happens, this is my response, versus I got to get a permission slip every time. Get the surgeon. That whole discussion around so temperature, humidity are addressed as a guide.
We need another 20.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Yes,
we're
please.
okay. We'll keep moving. We'll keep moving. We'll get it.
I mean, it's just lunch. Come on.
We'll wrap it up.
Yeah, we had one for you before we got on.
Yeah.
Listen,
Oh, we gotta look over.
I'd rather
So-
listen to this.
So, so again, establish timeframes, establish percent, where you're gonna be, if I'm 20% over, I wanna be X. If you're 20% over your high, it's raining, okay? So do something right now, all right? Yeah, so, yes.
One of the things that you really need to take into factor is, like manufacturer's recommendation on supply packaging. Those people and those clean supplies
Yes.
also have their guidelines about, how long they can be out of humidity range.
99% of those guidelines are written how? It's called an instruction for use, right? And you've probably read a few of these babies, I bet. You know how they decided what their humidity range should be for their product? Oh, that's what was in the standard. That's what 170 said it's supposed to be. They have never tested it.
But they can be on a boat on a cargo ship. all day.
Exactly. Exactly. So again, document it, risk assess it, throw it out. I'm telling you, that's the only way to handle those. Yeah, don't let the AHJ pound on you. Well, they said, yeah, we risk assessed it, and we've proven that. What's the one thing you really want to be careful with? Blue wrap. Where does blue wrap come from? Your folks. Your folks are doing it.
Yeah.
Why are we worried about blue wrap? It does breathe. All right? So that's where you got to be careful with blue wrap. Anything in a sealed package, what do we care? The humidity's not getting inside or outside it. Come on. But you do need to document that and get IP to sign off on it. Risk management is going to be your toughest one. But get them to sign off on it, you know. Help them understand that. Absolutely. Great point. Love it. But again, here we're talking, now you're talking about the established limits, okay? Here we're talking about excursions.
Right.
Do I need to be worried if I'm over 12 hours on an excursion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should be really doing something. I need to notify people, you know, and I need to really start making an effort here. But again, is anyone gonna, unless it's raining in the OR, it's really not that big of a, I mean, you know.
I have made it rain in the OR.
That's-
It was not fun.
It was not fun. I've been there, done that one too, man. Ambulatory Surgery Center in Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah, it was raining pretty good in there.
Humidifiers.
Yeah.
Hate 'em.
Once you've got all that information, now it's you just document, you put it in place, you create your VMP. We do recommend you include those items that list. Again, recommend it. Okay, you need to have those in there.
Do you have a template?
Do we have a template? No.
Do you know?
It's a great question.
We will have
one that I can read better.
That I do know.
Okay.
Or is there some?
So that's kind of funny. So we were such in the details, right? Now that we've got this thing up and
Well-
running, one of the top questions we're getting now is
that-
the sample count.
Why don't I want to give you a template?
We're gonna copy and paste, right?
You know how many people took my template for an infection control risk assessment and don't even take the ASHE logo off the dang thing? Guys!
We're getting there.
At least add yours, okay? Add your own note.
So good additional question, I think, Jonathan. So there have been two, if not the third, but at least
got
two
three.
hospitals. Three now?
Three.
So there's 3 hospitals who have
Systems.
been through, systems, have been through the process with Joint Commission using a VMP.
And again, so Children's Hospital in Children's Health in Dallas.
Yep.
That's technically a single hospital there.
Yeah. Wow.
And I don't know if it goes any further than that.
Yeah,
Banner Health Systems, they have it in place. They've been through multiple Joint Commission inspections, had one finding at one facility. What was the finding?
Pressure relationship.
Nope,
Penetration.
nope. No, for regarding their VMP. They weren't following it. Let me hand you the gun fully loaded and shoot me, okay? Oh, man. Folks, that's the one thing I'm gonna tell you. You put this in place, you gotta follow it. If you say 6 hours, you better be able to document at 6 hours we did X, Y, and Z, because that's what we say we're gonna do. And the reality of it is you're gonna do those things, why? Because of the patients. Yeah. We want to take care of the patients. Okay? And that's why we set this all up, is to take care of the patients. So that's why we want to be doing it. Got to get approval of this thing. Again, don't write this in your office and stick it in a book. That's why we recommend this be part of your EOC committee and part of your safety management and on up to leadership. This needs to go all the way and get signatures on that baby. Now comes the real fun. Educate the staff. All right? The clinical staff have to know about this program. Why? Why should they know about it?
Because they gotta follow.
Because they're the ones that
Yeah, effective.
they are the key individuals who affect it. Exactly. You know, it's just like that alarm panel I found with the airborne isolation room. They needed to understand what they were doing and expose them to. Do you think we ever had a problem with an alarm for an AII room after that incident? No, absolutely not. You know, so educating the clinical staff, and then, of course, you have to educate the facility staff, because you are going to have responsibility and response times in this. They need to be thoroughly aware of what those are so that they respond appropriately.
We went through doing setbacks in ORs after fighting for it for 20-something years. We finally got buy-in to do setbacks in ORs because Joint Commission started citing anything less than 68 degrees. It took a committee to get that approved.
Yep.
So I've got the baseline. I know who to go to.
Awesome.
So that's
Beautiful.
It can be done.
All right. Then you got to maintain the darn thing. You know, anytime there's a new construction project, you got to add those spaces, et cetera, to it, et cetera, et cetera. So maintaining it, just like any other plan. There's our contact information. Reach out to us. Let us know if you have questions, concerns. Any other thoughts, questions?
So as we said, this document has been approved by the 170 committee. It's been pushed back up to ASHRAE to publish. We were thinking a little more optimistically that we would get this published and it'd be out in front of everybody.
I'm hoping by the end of
Yeah, by May, you know, literally. Well, it's probably, or before the annual, right? Or, no, I can't say annual. The Innovation Conference. Let's say Innovation Conference, okay. But we're thinking mid to late summer right now. Yeah, mid to late summer
Yeah.
is what it is.
So it'll actually be published, and you'll be able to get copies of it late July, beginning of August. All right. I would highly recommend. There's no reason why you can't start writing a VMP now.
Yeah.
I don't think I provided these slides to you. I will get a PDF.
Actually, you're online, so I got them now.
I got to get you PDF.
Okay.
I got copies of the article, which kind of take you through the 9 steps. This actually is really good.
Yeah.
If you've not read this will give you insight into everything we just talked about. It breaks down the steps into detail. So that's a point.
HFM magazine.
You can
Search
do this.
9 steps.
Yeah,
In the search bar,
you can pull it
you'll
up.
get it.
Yep.
I think it's like the second or third thing that comes up, but you'll get it.
All right, any other questions? Appreciate you guys.